Fans, Rant here, and welcome to a discussion video on January Format 2016. This video will be exploring the new cards that will be out in the sets, the most prominent being Pendulum, Wizard, Savage Dragon, Infinity, Traptrix, Revelation, and Solemn Notice, and what the meta will look like for this format, because with Pendulum Wizard out, Pepe is more or less confirmed as the best deck. And there is other decks that are going to rival it, but nothing on the scale of Pepe. More or less, we're going to like a Dragon Ruler format where you either play Dragon Rulers or you don't play, because this is just too strong. It's like Necros, just better. I'd rather go against Full Force Necros right now than I would go against Full Force Pepe, because it's just not very good. So this video will be exploring now what meta and second tier meta you will likely come across against in this format, and what cards will get a lot more prominence, but also cards that will lose their prominence that they have currently now in this format, or have done in the last November-October format. So without further ado, let's go into this video. Oh, also, and what I think an emergency ban will look like if there happens to be one in the January format. So yeah, let's start going into the meta. So as we can see, the meta is essentially going to be Pepe, Cosmo, and Monarchs. Pepe will be the Overlords, as we all know this is going to be Clan Dominion, because now they're getting Pendulum Wizard as the secret rare in Bosch. They also get Savage Dragon Infinity at full force with Ptolemaeus, and Traptrix Rafflesia as well. Not to mention Monkey Board, Drago Rivals, Solemn Notice at 3, which the OCG never had at Full Force Pepe. They had it a bit afterwards, but with this, it looks like Pepe is just going to be just too overloading for more or less any other deck to be able to qualify as a meta deck. The other two decks that we do have are Cosmo and Monarchs. Cosmo is quite linear and will be subject to the Solemn Notice threat and the Ignista threat that Pepe does hold. And Monarchs will also be able to fight them off, in the sense that they have the Dominion of the Monarch, which allows you to stop Exceed plays, which can shut down Pepe quite effectively. But they can remove threats before they start with the fact that they have Solemn Notice. Solemn Notice stops the idea play, and if they don't have any vanished Monarch spells, they lose that idea completely without getting any plus back off it, no Pandeity to hand or anything. And that's going to be really problematic, especially since they can have a +9 start, and it can wreck most decks. So you get these two are going to be quite contenders, but they're never going to be as strong as Pepe, since Savage Dragon Infinity and Rafflesia are just going to be dominating everywhere, and Solemn Notice is going to be the only trap playable in the main deck, except from Solemn Warning, obviously. So yeah, and the trap balls for Rafflesia. So that is what the meta will look like, with the majority of it being Pepe, but you'll still see Cosmo and Monarchs having success here and there. But then there will be the other decks. The other decks that are great for this format, but are going to completely be slaughtered by Pepe. Cosmo, they will be slaughtered by Monarchs. A lot of them will have a lot of difficulties with them, but they do have outs. But they will never be on the scale of Pepe. And if Pepe gets an emergency ban or something hits it that kills its consistency to the point where Cosmo and Monarchs can thrive at a stronger point, these decks will most likely come back. We have Magicians with Apex Avian Control, Magispectors with either going for the Unicorn with a Magician engine, or going just pure with some Toads that can set those powerful Tempests. Or we can go against Infernoids. Infernoids being with Deviati heavy storming the field, and Anunsu negating Pendulum spells and banishing them, which is very powerful. Not to mention they also have access to Gozen Match and Rivalry of the Warlords, which are very powerful floodgates against Pepe, since they are not restricted to certain types or certain attributes, so that will restrict them to that linear position. Most likely Gozen Match going to be more effective, since Like, for example, Draco Slayers, they all have weird level attributes. Master and Luster are the only ones that correspond together. The other ones are all just different attributes, and it's just going to be very problematic if they were to go against Goes and Match. There's also Necros still as a viable deck. It did get hit quite badly by the ban lists, but it's still a possible threat, especially Necros and Trishula. Just being able to not target monsters to banish is just so good. There's also Tellarknights. Tellarknights also got that hit on the I think it was October or November ban list. So that was Rota 1, but not too bad. They have Trigger, they have the access to Horn of Unicorn, and not Horn of Unicorn, Horn of Heaven and Anti-Spell Fragrance, so they can main deck that and they can slow down the Pepe threat. Then there is Kaiju. Kaiju is more not seen as very prominent, but they can get over quite a lot of threatening cards like Cyber Dragon Infinity and Traptrix Ravelasia. So yeah, they can possibly perform if they use a Gradle engine in this format. So they can perform and be a bit better. Burning Abyss is another prominent threat in this format because they're getting Fiendish Rhino Warrior in Bosch, which is a great support card for Burning Abyss and will definitely help with what they got hit. I think it was Raptor 1 and Theater 2. That will be healed by, well, somewhat healed by the Fiendish Rhino Warrior increase. Well, intrusion into the deck. And then there will also be Mermails with Neptabyss, that very powerful turn 1 play with Neptabyss going into a Leo and then Wooling Glacier doing a Delinquent Duel style destruction of your hand. So that could be prominent. All these decks are very powerful and very good contenders. However, they're still going to be failing in comparison to Pepe just because it is that overpowered, that power creeped. So these decks will come more into the spotlight if there is a emergency ban on Pepe. So those are going to be your second tier decks that you will probably face in your first couple of rounds, maybe, if you're going to an event during this January format. But just be aware that you'll be going against a lot of Pepe for the rest of that. It's just going to be more or less Pepe domination. So I think I should go now into the cards I think are going to be quite prominent in this January format. So first, we're looking at the staples that are going to be in the main decks of this format. As I said, I wasn't going to be many traps unless you're going to be running Rafflesia. Rafflesia's best trap cards being Bottomless Trap All, Time Space Trap All, and Treacherous Trap All. However, Bottomless Trap All is going to lose a little bit of favour just because of Magic Spectre being a possibility of coming out. You never know, you could go against a Magic Spectre and then Bottomless Trap All is quite useless. Whereas Time Space Trap All not only hits more or less anything, it also hits Cosmo quite effectively, shuffling back their ships and meaning they don't have what they wanted out of the deck. So Time Space Trap All has got this prominence already from Cosmo hitting and will continue to gain prominence during Rafflesia's reign. Treacherous Trap All is another one that was used during the OCG format with these monsters running around everywhere. So an instant 2 destruction monster pop for basically no cost is absolutely brilliant. It can stop down the synchro players if they've opened up bad, or it could be the difference between getting over certain cards. So that is a possibility of seeing quite rampantly in people's deck lists. Then there's also Solemn Warning, a one-of in ours because it's at 1. But Solemn Note technically does get over with because it has 3 of those, but you'll still see that 1 of Solemn Warning. It will more or less be in every deck list you see, unless you're running Royal Decree, because it just stops pendulums so effectively. So yeah, that's them, but also you'll see an increase in Max C. Although I know a lot of people do not like Max C because it doesn't give you anything but draws, it doesn't defend you. You can still lose and have a massive hand that you gain from this Pepe OTK. But Max C will be seen more commonly because of the fact that they go off so well, they special summon so many monsters, and it can deny them the possibility of wanting to go that that extra mile to bring out those powerful monsters just because they think you may draw into a damage juggler, or some way of stopping their direct attacks or DKs, or just stopping their monsters with Veilers or Ghost Ogres. So Maxi can be quite preeminent and problematic for this format, and I feel like it will be seen in a lot of main decks during this January format. Other cards like Floodgates will be very prominent in this format. Floodgates are always prominent, but the main floodgates for this format are Anti-Spell Fragrance to stop Pendulum Scales being set, Stygian Dirge to stop Synchro and Exceed plays, because Luster Pendulum needs to be 4 or you can't go into Ignister because you're unlikely to be running a level 2, and just that's going to be cause a lot of problems. It stops both Synchro and Exceed in Pepe, so Stygian Dirge can be very problematic. They'll have to Twin Twister or MST the card. And then there's Kaiser Colosseum, which Cosmo are frequently going to be using to lock down the Pendulum summoning and stop them going for their Exceeds plays. And not to mention Imperial Iron Wall to stop the Cosmo and Inferno threats that you will probably have to go against. So these are the most common floodgates that you'll see during this format. Anti-Spell Fragrance though will be the main, just because it can stop quite a lot of decks. If you're not playing a Pendulum deck in this format, run Anti-Spell Fragrance in your side because it's just so powerful. And will probably go up in a height velocity that it's already having, but it may go even higher just because it's an out. So yeah, next ones are Infinity Outs, and these are in the form of Night Dracolich, Gamciel, or any kaiju of Volcanic Queen to get over it, and Flying Sea to be preemptive, not to mention XYZ Universe. Stygian Dirge also comes into this, but I already talked about Floodgate, so I might as well talk about something else in here, so XYZ Universe can be done. Night Dracolich in particular is very powerful against Cyber Dragon Infinity. It has a passive effect of switching any monster from someone from the main or extra deck that's non-worm to defense mode if they've summoned in attack mode, and all non-worms will lose their defensive points to 0. So that's very powerful because they lose their original defense, unlike they're going to have a hyped defense. So that means your Cyber Dragon Infinity, your summoning out, will become 0 defense and can be run over by Night Dracolich without them having to use any effect and force out the negation, depending on if Night Dracolich is in attack or defense mode or is protected by any cards. So it's a double-edged sword because it's going to be target for Cyber Dragon Infinity's draw in effect, which we'll use as a material. If it's in defensive position, it will be a 0 defense, which can be beaten down, which is problematic, but it can be summoned as a great powerful monster, which will slow down your opponent's progression. So hopefully Night Dracolich will get the welcomed enjoyment that it should have got. It's seen in a few Pepe decks in the OCG right now, so that is the main reason why I've put it in as an option. The other option is more applicable to me because I feel like this is what I'm probably going to run in my side deck, and that is a Kaiju or Volcanic Queen. Mainly because I can distribute your opponent's monster and just give them a weaker monster. Gamciel is the one I give as the example, just because it's a 2200 monster and it can be beaten over by Majesty's Fiend or Vanity's Fiend, and can be beaten over by a lot of other Exceeds that are going to be more likely to be brought out, whereas Volcanic Queen is 2500 attack, so it can't be beaten out by cards like King of the Feral Imps or Trapeze Magician. So Gamciel does do that, just making a nice 2200 target for you to beat down, whereas you're going against the Cyber Dragon Infinity will probably be 2500, which is annoying. Then we have Flying Sea, very preemptive, as some people are actually maining this in the OCG. So is that problematic? It's just one of your main deck outs, like some people are main decking Typhoon. So Flying Sea can do that in that sense, just summon it onto the field, stop their Exceed summons, but it's not going to be 200% almighty because there is still going to be Ignister Prominence, which can shuffle the Flying Sea back into the deck. So that is a thing. And then there's XYZ Universe. If there's 2 Exceed monsters on the field, you get to bring out your own Exceed, depending on which rank they are at. If there's 2 rank 4s, you're going to go for Kali Yugioh or Magical Sea Castle Yugioh, as I probably would if I was running XYZ Universe. Or if you go against Snapdragon Affinity and say you have a rank 4 out, you can go for something like CXYZ Coach Lord Ultimate Trainer and get a monster that's going to be, I think, it's untagable or affected by monster effects, and it also gets you a draw and an 800 burn, so that's good as well. So XYZ Universe will be more commonly in your side. Nitro Glitch as well. Kaiju is more of a thing I've been thinking of. Flying Seas also been seen quite effectively in this format. Next is onto the Pendulum outs. So, as a few people have already seen, Typhoon is starting to get more prominence. It's starting to get a bit more hype, mainly because you can do it on your turn 1, and that is very powerful. You can shut down those pendulum summons, especially if it looks like they've only got 2 pendulum scales and they can't go into anything further. You could stop their luster pendulum, and that can be very dangerous for them to they have to come back from it. They may have to waste a Wavering Eyes, which then you could do Wavering Eyes later, or you could damage juggler. So you've stopped the Wavering Eyes front. But there are other pendulum outs that have been seen, and spell frames I've already talked about, but Full House is something I've been seeing in Magispector, mainly as a side deck card, because you can destroy their scales and destroy loads of backrow. Most likely they will be running many backrow, except from solemn notices. So you could hit 1 or 2 solemn notices and 1 of your own backrow, since Magispectors usually use backrow. So this is probably going to have more accessibility for Magispectors, but as a more generic card, Breaker the Magical Warrior is still very good. It's a spellcaster, so it can be helped with Gigabyte to exceed it when its usefulness is run out, but it gives you a spell counter and destroys a spell trap on your opponent's side of the field, or just in general. No, on the field actually. It's just on the field, so that's very good. It actually beats Star Magician out because it doesn't have a discard cost, and it doesn't restrict to scale. So if you want to go off and you know you're going to get rid of the scale, but you don't want to be solemn notice, Breaker could be your option that you want to go for. Next we have field outs. These are going to be quite, well, not as prominent. They're seen as techs, more or less. Devastation Virus more is for Magispector than anything, but the other ones are seeing some play. The first is Grand Horn. This is more in the TCG than the OCG, just to negate those summons. It does give a draw, so that is problematic, but most Pendulum players know how to work around those negate summon cards. But some other cards that I've been seeing quite a lot of playing the OCG side deck, Needle Sealing and Cradle Eagle. Cradle Eagle being in the form of it can snatch steal a already used effect of a Cyberdragon Affinity, so that's very good. Have a nice gain Cyberdragon Affinity on top of your own Cyberdragon Affinity, so that's very, 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 very powerful. Or you can snatch steal a Rafflesia or anything else that you may want at that point. Ignis the Prominence, another very good card that you could steal. And then there's Needle Sealing. Pepe can go off so well and have a full board of like 4 or 5 face-up monsters. Why wouldn't you Needle Sealing that? Very powerful. Underestimated. It's technically a bit better than Dark Hole and Regeki at this point, because a Needle Sealing dropping down on their opponent's turn can be very crucial and can basically unwrite that Pendulum summon that they may have needed to go for game. And then there's Deck Devastation Virus. This can destroy stuff like Wisdom Eye Magician and basically any Magispector deck, because they're going to lose more or less all of their members because they're under 15. So Deck Dev is going to be more prominent, but there's less decks that are going to be running dark monsters with 200,000 attack or more, except for the King of the Pharaoh Limbs. So you may have to waste your Pharaoh Limbs that early on to use Deck Dev, but it can still be used and gives you information about the next 3 draws, or any draws that these so happen to go for. So that's good. So yeah, and then there's the Solemn Notice outs. My personal tech card, Cashback, is one of the ones I really want to talk about right now, because It's so powerful. It's going to be used. I feel like it's going to be used a lot more against Cosmo because they still have a lot of life points, including effects in their archetype. So cashback can be very good against them, but they most likely will be running triple solemn notice. So cashback can also hit that solemn notice and shuffle it back into the deck. They won't likely be running Ariadne the Absolver, so most likely it's going to be taking them a while until they get that solemn notice back again. So that could be very good. There's also the more generic card of Wiretap, just shuffle it back. Same thing as cashback essentially, just before any trap card. And it's a counter trap, so that's also very good. Same for cashback. There's full house you can go for, but it's going to be a little bit less effective just because more or less they're not going to have much of anything that's back row. So full house gets less active usage. And there's also draw and lockbird. Say they've gone for Luster Pendulum, Ariadne the Absolver turn 1. Luster Pendulum uses the effect to destroy Ariadne. Then you add Ariadne to your hand. You can then change Roll and Lockbird to stop them from searching for the rest of that turn. Therefore, they won't be able to gain the counter trap effect to search out the counter traps and slow down Solemn Notice's retrieval from the deck, not to mention slow down their engine to that extent. So that could be very good. Next, and the final one of cards I feel are going to be more prominent in this format is a secret engine that I'm feeling that people are not thinking of at the moment, and that's because we've only just found out that the other monster, the other promo for Bosch for the TCG could be a dinosaur. It's up on the wiki that it's actually a dinosaur, but it's not completely confirmed because it's a bit blurry. So there could be a secret engine, especially if there is an emergency ban on Pepe and hits quite a few consistency cards. This could be a secret engine that could replace that form of cards you've lost, and that is through the fact that you have Fossil Dig, which is basically Rota for dinosaurs. And with 2 dinosaur scales, you can search out which scale you need. Not to mention the Samurai Cavalry Reptia is Catastrophe for non-pendulums. And add into the equation that you have 2 very powerful dinosaur XC monsters, Lagia and Dolka. That could be very powerful. Dolka being like Solemn Notice, and Lagia negating summons and spells and traps. Very powerful. Could take us back into a Dino Rabbit-like format. So we may see these cards more prominent as a alternative engine that you may see teched around. You get a free search for anything basically, so it's something to consider, something that you should pick up 3 or 4 digs for at least, because you never know, this could become the new hyped Rhoda of the time, because there's only like 2 prints of Fossil Dig that I know of, so it's going to be very problematic if you try to find these after that hype. So this could be a secret engine that you may want to choose if you want to go against the flow of all of those Pepe and Before Pal engines. Next, onto the cards that I think are going to be hit, or not hit in sense, but are going to be used quite less. The first of these are for the Pepe deck, and that is the forms of Brilliant Fusion, Painful Decision, Masked Chameleon, and Doomstar Magician. Doomstar Magician is beaten out by the fact that we have Raker the Magical Warrior, and the fact that the deck is so fast it can recover from its scale destruction. And not to mention it'll have a discard cost, so you really don't have the room to be running 2 Trick Clowns. So you're going to have less target to discard, and you don't really want to discard a Pendulum, do you? So Doomstar's going to get less and less favour. Next is Masked Chameleon. Masked Chameleon is also going to get less favour because it's a random reptile that doesn't do anything else except from special summoning, and with Painful Decision most likely being a dropped engine, it would lose its accessibility to the Vector Pendulum in your graveyard, and therefore it will be not as applicable in your deck. Omega maybe not as applicable anymore for this deck, just because you have to run Snapdragon Infinity or Extrapolasia or Constellar Pallades. And then there's the Brilliant Fusion. Brilliant Fusion is a great engine. I'm not saying that, but with pure Pepe, they don't need it. They don't need it. They're that fast. They don't need the Brilliant Fusion at all. So you've got your speed. You don't need these cards that could possibly clock. You don't want to draw Garnet. So these cards are most likely going to be dropped just because pure Pepe will replace them, and Breaker the Magical Warrior is better than Noobstar in a sense. Then we have other trap cards and floodgate cards that we have that have been prominent over the last couple of weeks, or over a couple of formats in the form of Mistake, but they're going to be too slow for the current meta. First of these is Poisonous Winds. Poisonous Winds is mainly for Magic Vector, but it won't gain any real prominence against Pepe because not many of them are going to be wins except from Castel. So Poisonous Winds will lose favour in that sense. Then the Horn of Heaven, you can negate this normal summon however you like. They're still going to go off. They're still going to recover from one negated normal summon. So Horn of Heaven, not going to be too applicable in this format. Same for Storming Mirror Force. Cosmo is the main way you use against this. They can stop OTKs, but they can easily just get rid of that because they think it's a solemn notice. And against Cosmo, they've got their new Eclipser, which can negate negate Storming Mirror Force. So that's going to be a problem, and Storming Mirror Force will probably lose favour in that sense. And then finally, Mistake. Although this has been a very powerful trap card for a lot of decks, most decks now search, and they won't be able to have room for Mistake. Mistake and Rest will also lose some favour, just because it's not fast enough, because they're going to have a massive board by the time you get a chance to use your Mistake and Rest anyway. Unless you get in turn 1 and you've gone off perfectly. You can stop everything else. So yeah, Mistake and Rest are probably going to lose a bit of favour, but not as much as like Horn of Heaven and Poisonous Winds. And finally, the other ones, which are good from a few forms ago, but they're not so good now. Mainly Denko Sekka, because the only problematic back row you'll see are Wavering Eyes and Solemn Notice. Denko gets around this, and that's good, but that's about it. They may not draw those Solemn Notices. They may not draw those Wavering Eyes. They may keep them in hand because they think you're Denko Sekka. Denko Sekka could be a dead draw. So it's probably not going to be used as much in the side deck, at least while Pepe is still full force. And then there's Light and Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. There are some times when Shadow and Light do help against Pepe, or Cosmo for that fact, but they're still not going to be too speedy. Most of your sides are going to be orientated around Pepe outs, and for Cosmo outs, you have a few other sides like Imperial Iron War, which are going to be a little bit more better than a Shadow or a Light Imprisoning Mirror. And then finally, Retaliating Sea, because Inferno really won't be too much of a side option for you. Most likely you'll already have the Imperial Iron Walls, so you won't really have any room for Retaliating Sea. These are the cards I feel like are going to be losing favour in this upcoming format. Then finally, what I feel that emergency ban could happen is that we get rid of 4 of these cards. Well, 1 of Solemn Notice will stay, but the first 3, Wavering Eyes, Norden, Ptolemaeus, should get banned. Wavering Eyes, and as I feel and I've heard from a lot of duelists, Wavering Eyes is just too unfair. It's basically just it's basically like Exciton in that sense, that it just rewards you for not doing anything. If you just put two scales, you've done nothing this duel, you've played Wavering Eyes, you banish a card, you search your Wavering Eyes just to hinder your opponent next turn, you add a Pendulum monster, you get to go off because your opponent left the scales. And that's because they did their plays. Wavering Eyes is just going to become too problematic. People are going to absolutely hate this card. I know I absolutely hate this card. It's the difference in most matchups between winning the duel and losing the duel, and that shouldn't be. Wavering Eyes should be banned for that sense. Then there's Norden, because Instant Fusion will be rampant. It gives Savage Dragon Infinity quite easy access, so Norden should be banned for that sense. Instant Fusion would not be a nice ban, to be honest, because a lot of lower decks use Instant Fusion for other things like Panzer Dragon or Carbonal Warrior, so it's not really needed compared to Norden. Norden is more problematic, to be honest. And then there's Ptolemaeus, it gives you access to Infinity. I wouldn't ban Infinity, just because it's nice Savage Dragon in support, and not every deck can bring it out if they don't have Ptolemaeus. So you can do it that way, and you ban Ptolemaeus and stop that. And so I'll notice it'll probably go to one like Sullen Warning, and yeah, that's all I need to say about that. Pepe probably will get some more hits, maybe in the form of Jammer Juggler or Skull Crowbar Joker. We may see Wisdom Eye, Shadow Mist, or even Neptibus hit as well. But I think these are the most prominent cards to be hit at this time, just to slow down the Pepe threat. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this discussion video. I know it's just dragging on for 30 minutes, but this is basically what I feel the format will look like, what cards will be most likely used, and what cards will lose favor, and what decks you'll probably see in this format. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe if you enjoyed this and want to see further content. Please leave your comments below if you got any suggestions for my channel, or any suggestions that you think I missed out on that I probably would have done, and more likely like King of the Fairy Lumps. I should have talked about him, but everyone knows that's going to be used quite a lot in that form. It's more or less a stable exceed like Ibis Dweller is now. So yeah, leave those in the comments below and I'll definitely read them, yes. So thank you for watching. Mataran signing out.